Broadcasting from the Unshackled Studios in Melbourne. This is WilmsFront, brought to you by the Unshackled.net. Now here's Tim Wilms.
Hello everybody and welcome back to WilmsFront on this Thursday the 8th of May 2025. We are live on the WilmsFront YouTube channel, the WilmsFront Rumble channel and my WilmsFront X account. It is 7 p.m. here in Melbourne, Victoria, where there's been a few silver linings as counting has continued post-election night. Liberal Tim Wilson has won back the seat of Goldstein from Teal Independent Zoe Daniel, and Greens leader Adam Bandt has been defeated in his seat of Melbourne by Labor's Sarah Whitty. There is still hope that the Teal Karen of Kooyong, Monique Ryan, could be defeated by Liberal Amelia Hamer, making Melbourne both green and teal free. Of course, this doesn't change what was immediately clear on election night, that the Albanese Labor government had won in a landslide, its biggest victory post the Second World War, and the Liberal Party suffered its worst defeat in its party history. This has led to many political commentators to ponder if the result is the end of the Liberal Party in its current form. To discuss this question, my WilmsFront guest tonight is one of the many who've been chewed and spat out by the dysfunctional Liberal Party machine, our good friend Kyle Kutasi, and also lawyer extraordinaire. Kyle, welcome back to WilmsFront.
Thanks, Tim. Great to be back.
Now, first of all, did you expect this result? Because most of the polls didn't pick it.
No, I don't think anyone thought it would be this bad. I mean, I actually thought we were going to lose. One of my colleagues came to me right about 5 weeks ago, just before the election. He said, Sportsbet's paying $7 for a Labor majority. And I said, well, jump on that. But not so much because I thought that it was definite. It was just, for me, $7 seems like a really good deal for at that time. And it proved to be so. And by the way, turned out he didn't put any money on it. Lost out on all fronts.
Yeah, I've noticed that there's a lot of chatter about the odds about, is this good odds, but depending on which direction it's going. I know that in the NRL and, well, in Sydney and generally, it's just gambling everywhere. So, of course, you were thinking about that.
Oh, I don't even gamble. It's just in a 2-horse race, $7 always seems to be a pretty good deal. I mean, look, the serious point is, did anyone think that the coalition was going to get that badly done? No, I don't think so. And looking back on it, it's still kind of a little bit hard to understand why it was that bad. But then again, maybe it's not. I mean, think about the voice referendum for a minute. 40% of Australians voted for that. Which goes to show you that 40% of Australians will vote for anything. So you only need another 10% and you got a majority, don't you? I mean, maybe we're all just completely screwed.
Well, it's a single issue vote referendum is always different from a general election. I mean, you look at going back to the 2017 same-sex marriage plebiscite. All the Labor seats in Western Sydney voted no, yet ever since that time, they've still voted for their local Labor MP, despite all of them voting against their electorates in favour.
Oh, I understand the point. And whilst I'm an opponent of same-sex marriage, there's a logic to it. There was no logic to the voice referendum. That was just an absolute dog's breakfast that would have destroyed Australia in a heartbeat. But yet so many people still voted for it. So, I mean, I think people these days are a lot more fickle in terms of support of parties or candidates than they were when you and I were young, Tim. I think we probably grew up in an era where Australia was roughly 35 for the major parties and then the other 30% for whomever. I think it's more like today, it's more like 25 and 50% everyone else. So you're going to get more wild swings like that. particularly when someone's not popular, because there's nothing keeping anyone voting for a particular party more so than they used to get with the rusted-on hardcore vote.
Is this why it's premature to say it's the end of the Liberal Party? So the old warriors of the party on Sky After Dark, Chris Kenny and Peter Credlin, they're saying, like, let's not listen to the overly dramatic, sensational commentary. The pendulum always swings back, like it did in Queensland, the 2015 election after the Cameron LNP slide. Anastasia Palaszczuk managed to get minority government coming back from a party room of 7.
Oh, 100%. Tim, there is no doubt that the pendulum will swing again. There's no question about it. In time, that will happen. The core problem for any political party, Liberal, Labor, National, Greens, whatever, is how do you make that pendulum swing faster in your direction and keep it staying there longer? But on one hand, whilst I don't think it is the end of the Liberal Party, on one hand, I would say the Liberal Party is getting very close to a point where it's about to fall below a critical mass. And what will happen when that occurs is something else will rise up and take its place. And why I say that is, for example, the Liberal Party in New South Wales now has about 7,000 members. That seems a remarkably small number. And
there's more members of your club, NRL club, the West Tigers.
There certainly are. I think there's more members of some community organisations than the members of the entire New South Wales division of the Liberal Party. And in the 1960s, that membership had a number 0 on the end of it. It was about 70,000 at a time when the population of Australia was half of what it is today. And the number continues to fall and continues to fall and it continues to fall. And why that's important, and the same, by the way, the same thing's happening in Labor. But Labor's not as pronounced an effect because they've always got the union movement at the end of the day that always prop them up and flood them with bodies.
Oh, yeah, they were there on election day.
Yeah. So why it's a particularly pronounced problem for the Liberal Party is the smaller your membership gets, the harder it is to man polling booths, the harder it is to find people who will letterbox and door knock, the harder it is to find candidates who are good quality. This is why they keep coming up with absolute duds in unwinnable seats.
Yeah, we can go through the whole list of all of their crap candidates who all lost, particularly the DEI candidates.
Yeah, and that's why they got to keep reaching for these people because no one else is around to do any of this stuff. And so they've got to go through this really hard vetting process, particularly in an era of social media, which again also didn't exist when you or I were younger, Tim. So, that stupid thing that you wrote on Twitter in 2007 can suddenly get dredged back up and used against you because someone's got the time to go through it or uses AI to go through it or whatever the case may be, which was never a problem in the past. And so they're even more panicky about, well, we got to have real white bread people. We can't have anyone who's got an opinion on anything because if anyone's ever held an opinion on anything and it's unpopular, then we're going to get caned in the media. So people get told they can't run. People get disenfranchised. When the membership's really small, it's really easy to manipulate. Much easier to manipulate when you've got 20 people in a room as opposed to 2,000 people in a room. And it's going to continue to go that way. And it's not just in New South Wales; it's the case in every other state. It's the case with all political parties. It's a constant downward slide, and so the Liberal Party will eventually get to a point where it can no longer sustain itself. And I think the only thing that's keeping it alive is the public funding. I don't know if you're aware. Every vote that was cast for the Liberal Party on Saturday, they get $7. So across the country, they'll get about $60 million from the federal taxpayer to fund them for the next 3 years. And that funding, as of the 1st of July, becomes $10 a vote. So the next election after that, they'll get about $100 million in public funding. So they no longer raise any money from corporate donors. believe it or not. Almost all the parties' funding now comes from the Australian taxpayer.
And that funding goes to actually employing people at head office to, well, to do. They also did a crap job this election. I mean, yeah, the Muppet memes and using the Windows 95 text for their signature policy, and there's so much that went wrong and this is what a lot of people are talking about. What it was a combination of everything. The signature policy, 25 cents a litre off petrol for 12 months.
And Jim, that's the biggest problem at the end of the day, is that was the only policy they essentially took to the election. There was some stuff early on about nuclear, but it was never really fleshed out, and then they wouldn't talk about it at all. You know what it reminded me of? And I'm now showing my age again. It reminded me of the 1990 federal election when Andrew Peacock was the Liberal leader. You've got to remember 88, 89, Bob Hawke had overseen an economy where interest rates went to 18.5%. And the reason they went to 18.5% was because inflation got out of control. So, you know, we've seen.
How high was the inflation?
Yep. And this is very similar, eerie in a way to what happened in 2024, 2025 here. And they made a similar mistake. Peacock decided he would have no policy. And for whatever reason, they thought they could just coast in on the back of Hawke being unpopular. And the reason the result was not more pronounced for Drew Peacock was because Kane and Kerner were so unpopular in Victoria. They won 15 seats in Victoria, but they lost 15 seats in New South Wales, Queensland, and Western Australia, which is, again, very, very similar to what happened on Saturday night.
Can I just pick you up there? Except in Victoria, and we can bring up some of the results here. So yeah, the two-party preferred, though in some seats they've got three-party preferred now because there's all these independents, but the two-party preferred 2.7% swing to the Labor Party. So it's currently with 81.6% counted, 54.8% to the coalition's 45.2%. But we've got an unpopular state government here in Victoria now. I was getting the flyers delivered, Double Trouble, Albo and Allen, yet in Victoria there was a 1.4% swing to the Labor Party, and
yeah, but it wasn't...
they have not taken a seat as of yet off the Labor Party here. In fact, they've lost 2 seats to the Labor Party, the Liberals.
That is the big difference from 90, is that they didn't win anything in Victoria. But I'll say there's 2 reasons why. Kane and Kerner had by 90 completely bankrupted Victoria. Remember the pyramid building scheme where...
I was born in 89. I didn't live through them. I was an infant.
Right. Well, I mean, there was something like 20% of Victorians lost all their life savings in the pyramids collapse. It was an absolute economic catastrophe, and that's one of the reasons why they got absolutely smashed. And then in 92, Kennett won in an absolute landslide as well. How quickly people forget how badly Labor runs economies when they get a chance to do so. Obviously, Andrews and Allen might not be very popular, but they're certainly not down on that level of having completely bankrupted the state as of yet. And I'd say that's really the main difference. But, what they did was they had no policy. Even in 96, Howard deliberately ran a small target strategy, but it wasn't that he had no policy. Everyone knew he was an economic deregulator. He was going to slash the budget. He was going to privatise things. He went to the election with a promise to privatise Telstra. That was part of the platform in 96. But it was often common at the time as well how little other policy he had. That's a small target strategy. Not having zero policy at all apart from a small slashing of excise
Well, also, the public hated Keating by that point, who was out of touch and arrogant.
And they did. That's true. Whereas, this time around, the Liberals opposed tax cuts. I mean, it's extraordinary. Yes, it was a small tax cut, but they figured, oh no, we don't want to oppose. We don't want to support tax cuts because then that means that we won't have more money in the budget to spend on the things we want to do. Well, since when was that part of Liberal Party platform? Was let's spend more money than the other person. Whenever the Liberal Party attempts to outspend, out-labor Labor, they always lose. It doesn't matter whether it's federal, it doesn't matter whether it's state, they will always lose. But they're always tempted to go there because the party is always full at the very top echelons of the professional class, the people who walk their poodles in Newtown, the people who get their haircuts 3 times a week and pay $400 for a haircut. It's always been the people at the top of the tree who make the decisions around this stuff. And they spend all day talking to their friends on Newtown Station or wherever the case may be. And they think that this is what the average everyday person thinks. And so they're always dragged in that direction. And that's exactly, again, what happened on this occasion, right? They listened to the nonsense from the professional class and they got their comeuppance.
Though there's also been the counter argument that the aging Liberal branches, who I don't know if this is true, but the average age is 70, that they're not representative of modern Australia, because obviously Australia is, well, it's a different generation now, and it's different demographically as well. And so there's been a lot of commentary that the Liberal Party is it's too beholden or reactionary to its unrepresentative membership base, and this is what's happened.
Which is a function of the falling numbers of members. You are correct. I always describe the Liberal Party's membership as looking a bit like a donut. You've got a large population in membership in retirement age, and you get a large number of young Liberals. You get the uni students, and everyone between the ages of about 26, 27 up to about 55. It's very thin. But the irony is that that's the period of time in which people are electable, right? But people don't want to vote for an 18-year-old. People don't want to vote for an 80-year-old. They're going to vote for people who have made careers of themselves, people in their 40s and 50s, generally speaking, have had some experience, have a stake in the game, have some energy left as well. That's important. And the irony is that's where they're completely hollowed out. And it's because, and I don't think it's a Liberal Party either. I think it's the same in Labor and Nationals and Greens and whatever. I just don't have any experience of other political parties. And the reason is because people are earning a living in that era, in that time frame. They've got families demanding, whether it's wife, whether it's children, and you've got a lot of other things that keep you occupied. You're paying for a mortgage. You don't have time to go every Monday night to a branch meeting and have tea and scones with a bunch of 70-year-olds. Not that there's anything wrong with doing that, but that's the sort of hard work that you have to do in order to get pre-selected. Is you got to meet those people regularly and have tea and scones with them, and it's difficult. And so a lot of people, this is why we have a lot of childless women who are getting elected to Parliament, because they've got the time to do it. That's why we're getting a lot of childless men who are often homosexuals who are getting elected to Parliament, because they've got the time and the ability to devote to that. And that's another story for another day. I don't want to go there right now.
Well, there are heterosexual men like James McGrath who don't have a family.
Sure. And that's not to say I wasn't making any value judgment on whether people have families or don't have families. It's just an observation about something that is overrepresented.
Now, some of these shocking results in the seats that changed hands. The list is long. But in New South Wales, the seat of Hughes, Craig Kelly's old seat, Jenny Ware, first-term MP, defeated by David Moncrieff. That's in the Sutherland Shire, which is, it's next to Cronulla. Nobody was expecting that.
What was the margin that she sat on?
So it was a 5.8% swing to the ALP.
3.5% margin.
So it was just 3.5% margin.
It's always been a marginal seat. I mean, the Libs first won it in '96, which is when Howard won. I'm pretty sure they lost in '07, I think.
No, I think Dana Vale, she stayed around for one more term, and then Craig Kelly won the seat in 2010 and kept it, obviously, until 2022 when he was no longer a Liberal Party member or candidate.
Yeah, you may be right. I mean, that was hardly, I wouldn't say that was the biggest shock. I would have thought losing, well, it turns out it looks like they're probably still going to win Bradfield, but I would have thought that was a bigger, given, Bradfield was once the most safe seat in the country, I think, for the Liberal Party.
Now Bradfield is still in doubt. So I'll bring it back up on the screen here. So how do you say a name?
Giselle Capteri. Yeah.
So she looks like she's got ahead against the independent Nicolette Beaulieu, who, of course, Beaulieu, who, well, she had a few issues during the campaign, which didn't help herself.
Actually, does everyone, Tim, do you know what the thing that she got most in trouble for? Actually made me want to like her. So
about the comment to the hairdresser.
The hairdresser. She said, "This is the most fun I've ever had with my clothes on." And
that was great. I didn't even need to have sex with you.
Yes. Well, I was a little bit more diplomatic. But I actually thought that's kind of funny, to be honest with you. But anyway.
Well, if you're running as a PC teal, and this is where
that's right.
These PC candidates fall over, but this is another challenge for the Liberals. Now, Tim Wilson, he's now known as the Teal Slayer for winning back Goldstein from Zoe Daniel, and Amelia Hamer, it's still a bit of a challenge for her to knock off Monique Ryan. But the Teals who held seats in Sydney all easily got re-elected. So Allegra Spender Wentworth, Sophie Scomps in McKellar, and Zali Stegel in Wentworth, and Kate Cheney in Perth. So that's interesting that they had easy retains in those two cities, but not in Melbourne. So although Tim Wilson showed it can be done, there's still a challenge. And Chris Uhlmann on Sky News had a good analogy. The Teals are like to the Liberals like the DLP was to the ALP in the 50s, 60s and 70s.
I've said to you, I think I've said it to you privately, and I say it to everyone. The Teals are Greens who shave their legs. That's all they are. And what they are is they're a gateway drug for what used to be Liberal Party voters in blue ribbon seats in Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Perth, Adelaide, who to transition into being Labor and Greens voters, but they can't wrap their head around, they don't vote for smelly trots, and
they can't stomach the Marxist Greens. And Allegra Spender comes from Liberal blue blood family, as does Kate Cheney.
Yeah, they both had grandparents who were members of the Australian Parliament as Liberals. That's right, and that's the type of person who's now attracted to the Teals. Is they realise they're not really conservative people. They're not even small L Liberals. They might like a little bit of economic freedom, a little bit, a very small little bit, but otherwise they're leftists on all social issues. Right? You scratch the surface of a Teal, and they're as hardcore Green as a Green. They're hardcore left Labor people, right, on those social issues, but they don't like trade unions, which is what turns them off the ALP, and they don't like the personal hygiene issues of the members of the Greens. So
I haven't heard that before.
So that it's a gateway drug. That my personal belief is the Liberal Party will never ever win back the Teal seats. Even now, Tim Wilson and Amelia Hamer, I think, will probably just scrape home in Kooyong. And by the way, she's actually pretty good. But I think they'll hold it for a term or two, and then they'll lose again, and it will just never ever come back. Never. The Liberal Party's got to understand that its strategy now is in the western suburbs of Sydney. If you want to call them the battler seats, that's where elections are going to be won and lost. And until they start focusing on those seats instead of trying to win the Teal seats back, they'll continue to pitch policies like they did at New South Wales state election level of trying to appeal to the Climate 200 camps, which is what largely cost them that election as well.
Though there is others who argue that the New South Wales Liberal Parliamentary Party, putting aside the organisational wing for a moment that's in administration, was very successful with moderate leadership for 12 years, even though they went through many leaders, Barry O'Farrell, Mike Baird, Gladys Berejiklian and Dominic Perrottet, by just focusing on what was important to the New South Wales people, they were very successful. And we'll get to the Liberal leadership very shortly, but I noticed a few centrists on X who are saying that the Liberals should draft Gladys Berejiklian and Dominic Perrottet to federal parliament.
Oh, well, you really want to start talking about that guy. The guy who, when he was Premier, all he did for 18 months was put an Aboriginal flag on the Harbour Bridge, legislated euthanasia, and got absolutely wiped out in the election. What's successful about him? I'm not sure.
To be fair, the Labor didn't win that election convincingly. It's still a hung parliament.
Oh, with 10 left independents all supporting them. They have no difficulty getting their legislation through, none whatsoever, and they won't have any difficulty getting their legislation through. Look, don't get me wrong. There were good things that were done by that government in the 12 years that was there. You've got to remember they won in the first place because Labor had become exceedingly corrupt. There were public corruption scandals in which people were taking brown paper bags openly in return for mining approvals, and there were ministers going to jail. So that government fell apart on its own heap. O'Farrell gets elected in 2011, which it was always going to do. You could have run a horse and won that election, and then it's always a couple of cycles where you've either got to really stuff things up in order to get booted out. But if you say to someone, what did the Liberals do in 12 years in office in New South Wales? They'll say, oh, they built some roads.
They built the new Allianz Stadium.
So they built a stadium that already existed. So knock down one that was built in 1988 and rebuild another one on the top of it.
So, in my opinion, because I went to that stadium, that was a pretty unsafe stadium.
What was unsafe about it? It was made from concrete. How do you set concrete on top?
It doesn't have exits on the goal side. So if there's a fire or some sort of emergency, how do you get out from that end? I couldn't believe that the stadium was designed that way.
You would go onto the field. That's where you would go. But anyway, the point is that was government propaganda to justify knocking down a perfectly decent stadium and spending billions on billion other one, because we get rivers of GST money sent to us by federal government. We have to spend it somehow. Labor spends it on more public servants and increased public servant salaries. We're not going to do that. We're going to build stuff. It's the same playbook that Colin Barnett ran in WA. That's why we had all these hospitals and shopping centres and schools getting built. I'm not sure. I can't speak for other states. But presumably that's what they generally will do when they get into office, because you're getting the money irrespective. There's no point leaving it behind for the Labor government to use. So you're going to spend it somehow. And it's just a difference of preference on how they spend the money that's given to them. They could write a check to everyone and give it all back to everyone. I prefer that happens, but they won't do that.
Just going back, you mentioned the New South Wales Labor government scandals that saw it turfed out in 2011,
Mhm.
there of course there's two ex-Liberal MPs. One was re-elected as an independent, Gareth Ward, who are now facing charges, and the by-election for Pittwater, when Rory Amon resigned, was won by a Teal independent, Jackie Screwbury. So I wondered if the Amon affair sort of hardened Teal support in those northern suburbs.
Oh, undoubtedly, because he only won very narrowly to begin with. I think he won by about 200 votes at the state election in 2023. So you're always going to have that by-election effect against you, and particularly given what he was accused of, would have really made the Liberal brand even more unpalatable. And I think that also followed hard on the back of if my timing's right, it was also that time when the Liberal Party failed to nominate people for local government as well. And they just looked, I think they just looked like a schmozzle.
It was.
Yeah.
And Rory Amon, he was spotted bartending at one of the West Tigers games. Did you spot him there?
No, I sit in the stand, in what's called the Latcham Robinson stand, and I saw that photo in the newspaper the next day. It looked like he was pouring beers on the hill. So totally different end of the ground from where I didn't know he was there until I saw it in the paper. But, Tim, you're about the 20th person this week that's asked if I was the person who took a photo of Rory Amon at Leichhardt Oval.
No, I didn't. I didn't ask you that. I just wondered whether you saw him.
I can assure you, I had nothing to do with it. I actually feel sorry for the bloke. I mean, look, either side what he's been charged with, he's getting a lot more attention than the other person who's been charged with child sex offences that you mentioned before.
Gareth Ward, who's still
sits in the
MP,
Parliament. Yeah.
Which down in Illawarra, the Liberals there are completely dysfunctional. I mean, this federal election, there was dumping Benjamin Britten in the first week of the campaign for having the same views as Women in Combat as Andrew Hastie does. And there was a swing to the Liberal candidate, Nathaniel Smith, ex-New South Wales Liberal MP. So they could have won that seat because of the backlash offshore wind. But again, it was just party games.
Yeah, I don't know why Britain was dumped for that. Again, that shows you the extreme PC sensitivity, which is exactly what influences all the decisions that these guys make on everything. And I mean, we can veer onto this topic because it's something I'm involved in. Dutton wouldn't even come out and say a woman is a woman.
He had amnesia. He used to know, then he developed amnesia.
Even though this is now an issue on which the public is absolutely one way. There's no one is really supporting the idea that people cannot choose whatever gender they want to be anymore.
But I just want to put a counter that is Australia different, because I've been saying this because I reflect on these things, but my views that Australians, they're a lot more passive, particularly on these culture war issues, than the US and the UK. And I think it's also due to the fact that in the US and the UK, there's vast conservative infrastructure and media, while here, there's basically only Sky News, the Spectator magazine, and the Institute of Public Affairs. Obviously, no disrespect to the H.R. Nichols Society, which you're a board member of.
We're not a publishing organisation. So you're right. You're correct. Yeah.
So there's basically that's it. That's the sort of the counterculture in Australian conservative circles.
No, you're unquestionably correct. I wouldn't say that it's as hardcore here as it would be in, say, the United States. But does anyone really seriously suggest that the vast majority of Australians are confused on gender issues? I don't think so. I think there was almost no political cost to Dutton coming out and saying a woman is a woman. And we know exactly what a woman is. It's an adult.
No, like Albanese, he even said at the last election, a woman is an adult human female.
Mm-hmm. And but for some reason, we now Dutton couldn't do that now. You know, look, I don't. I'll go back to the Liberal Party's organisation. Something that people outside the Liberal Party don't really understand is the Liberal Party is effectively elected monarchical system. The leader is basically the king or queen, if the case may be, and they get exactly what they want whenever they want. And there's numerous examples of leaders, state and federal level, who have led everyone off the cliff. And I could spend hours recounting to you the stories of, you know, the New South Wales Liberal Party was effectively bankrupted in '99 by Kerry Chikarovsky, who spent money on television ads that the party didn't have. You got to wonder, how do they allow her to spend money that the party doesn't have?
Oh, yeah, and the change in media, the Liberals are still living like it's the television, radio, print, and that's it. And the sort of TikTok ads that they put out. I mean, did you listen to their diss track? The Liberal Party's Albo's gotta leave.
Actually, you know, the funny thing is, all the media I now consume is podcasts, and I watch football on streaming services. That's effectively all the media that I consume. I only ever heard Labor ads on the podcast I listened to, and I didn't see anything else. I actually never saw a single Liberal ad on a television or a video.
I watched a lot of Sky News, so I saw a lot of their ads, but the Dutton ad, where it's basically him introducing himself, and it finishes with one of the worst slogans, "Let's get Australia back on track." I mean, it reminded me of Julia Gillard's "Moving Forward." It was that inane.
That's right. Or do you remember Keating's slogan in '96?
I don't. I was 7 years old.
Leadership. Is that okay? The most boring, uninspiring slogan you could ever encounter? That was it, and he had nothing else to campaign on because everyone knew how much he was hated. So that's what he said was, "Oh well, at least I'm a leader."
The Liberals tried to attack Albanese's leadership qualities and his being quite tricky with the truth, and of course they ran ads on him denying that he fell down the stage, but none of it worked.
Guy falls off the stage. Who cares? Why is that a big deal?
Because he claimed that he didn't. He just stepped off the stage.
Oh, matter of interpretation, isn't it? I mean, look, these are things when you got to focus on stuff like that. It shows you got no policy, right? Is that really what the whole thing boils down to? No one knew what they stood for. So why would you vote for someone when they don't offer you an alternative? You know, and most look. And the other problem that I mentioned it before. All the candidates are now duds. Not all, most of them are duds. The days when all the candidates were successful barristers, successful business people who just wanted to go in and give back to the community, those days are long gone. It's now, you know, check out chicks at Coles, for whom this is now a big, you know, promotion in their life. It's the most important thing. It's the most money they'll ever make as well. That's another thing a lot of people don't realize about most politicians, is this is a pinnacle of their income earning capacity is becoming a politician, not the other way around. And so for them, they want to stay there, and they don't want to lose it, because then they can't pay for the big fancy mortgage they bought on the house they just bought in Canberra. So you just got all these losers now. And it's in all sorts of it's all sides of politics. It's Labor as well. It's the Greens. It's the Nats. They're all professional losers. They're all people who you wouldn't employ. I'm not going to name the person. There is a candidate at the last election that just happened on Saturday for the Liberal Party who was running solely because he doesn't have a job, and that was actually his pitch, was, I need this job because I don't have another source of income. And he was run for a marginal seat that
if you don't want to name him on air, please message me after the show who they are.
Anyway, point is, they're losers, mate. They're professional losers.
And there's also like I mentioned, the way Liberal Party's multicultural outreach is that, well, if there's a seat where there's lots of Indians or Chinese, then we'll just stick a diverse candidate there. So, of course, there was in Greenway, there was Ratan Virk, who, of course, his campaign truck infamously crashed into an AEC early polling centre. I mean, the fact that there was campaign trucks crashing and then Peter Dutton's media bus got bogged in Sydney, and of course all the cameras are there, like that sort of stuff, metaphorical stuff.
And by the way, there's something to be said for deliberately not running Indians in a high Indian population area or Chinese in a high Chinese population area. For anyone who, and I spend all day dealing with people of multi-ethnic backgrounds because, in my law firm, we take everyone on all sorts of bases. And one thing Indians will all tell you, oh yeah, she's Punjabi. Nah, I'm not voting for her. I don't vote for Punjabis. They're the scum of India. Just use an example, right? And you laugh and you go, seriously? And they go, yeah, I know. No, I vote for a white guy over a Punjabi. And then, you meet a Punjabi who'll say, oh, that person's from Madras. No, I'm not voting for them. I don't vote for people from Karnataka.
And of course, a lot of them are bringing those ethnic conflicts too. I mean, there was the mini riot in the CBD in Melbourne a couple of years back between the Sikh, Khalistani, the independence group and the Hindu nationalists.
So the idea of, if we just run Indians will vote for them. I'm not sure it actually works that way necessarily. And I think the same applies with Chinese. I think the same applies with all sorts of ethnic groups. Sometimes the best thing you can actually do in those areas is run a white person because that's the expectation.
That's what Labor does, and they win.
Yeah, but apparently Libs have a problem with ethnic communities, but Labor doesn't. Okay, right? Apparently, anyway. I think part of that as well is the Liberal Party allows itself to be framed by the ABC. One, the ABC should be abolished anyway, right? I don't know why in today's world.
Liberal governments have never done it.
They won't touch it. They're scared shitless of doing it. But secondly, even if you feel you can't do that because you don't have the numbers and you can't get away with doing that, why would you ever allow your people to go on the ABC? Just boycott the damn thing. Right? No one who watches the ABC supports you anyway. So
they believe the polls that the ABC is the most trusted news media organization in the country, and that basically to gut it, it's called Auntie, that it's basically like killing Auntie.
Set Auntie on fire. Poison her with mushrooms.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just talking about.
Give her death cap mushrooms in your beautiful what was it that lady supposedly cooked up?
The beef Wellington.
The beef Wellington, that's it. Give Auntie a beef Wellington. That's what I would do. Yeah.
And also going back to the candidate we just mentioned, Ratan Virk, I mean, there was a cloud over her leaving a directorship of company, which was then audited by the ATO and then liquidated. Then there was some of the dodgy businesses by the Afghani Muslim who was selected down here for Bruce, Zahid Safi, and the Age Reporter was chasing him like it was an episode of Current Affair. And the candidate that the Liberals selected for McNamara, and they put a lot of resources into trying to win these Jewish seats, which they've only looked like they've won Goldstein. They picked Benson Salu, who's half Aboriginal, half Papuan, who used to be in Labor and the Greens and another party, seemed like a party hopper.
Well, there's plenty of party hoppers going around. I mean, some people genuinely do wake up
like
and smell
Brendan
the
Nelson.
Yeah, Brendan Nelson's an example. Andrew Charlton's an example the other way around. I was a member of the Young Liberals when Andrew Charlton was a member of the Young Liberals. You never hear anyone talk about his time in the Liberal Party, and he'd have you believe that he's always been a Labor guy. Whatever. I mean, people change their views. I understand that. It's not. I think what's more important is equality of the candidate. What do they believe in? What do they stand for? What are they, what are they going to do if they get elected? How good are they explaining the message? Are they coming up with unique ideas? Because you need a diversity. You don't want, people. We don't want everyone having exactly the same identikit cut, and they're all standing for exactly the same things, and they all look the same, and they all talk the same. You need that diversity, but diversity is more than just skin color, or whether someone's got what they've got between their legs. Diversity is more diversity of ideas, diversity of opinions, diversity of backgrounds. But then we're veering now into the issue of quotas. We don't do quotas on how many poor people or people who started at government schools or people who have their own healthcare plans or whatever the case may be, right? You want to get a wide diversity of opinions and backgrounds, and that's more important than what skin color someone has.
Well, there's no talk about quotas for skin color, but there's talk that the Liberals need quotas for gender. Apparently that now there's only two genders again, male and female, and apparently quotas in the Labor Party have been a great success with equal representation. There's the ex-Sky News journalist Charlotte Mortlop, who's been doing the rounds, head of Hilmer's network, saying that she said she's not asking for quotas, she's demanding them now, and said that basically that's. And you've also got Simon Birmingham saying the same thing, and you've also got
inside the Liberal Party. Hilmer's network is a nothing organisation. You only ever hear Charlotte Mortlop pop up on news outlets. You don't see her at anything. I remember.
Well, she claims that's because she's being ignored.
I remember a pre-selection a couple of years ago where she decided to back an absolute dud of a woman who ran for the Senate, and the woman got about 10 votes out of 500. And the Hilmer's network, said, let's mobilise all the women to support this person, and they all said, yeah, no. She has a outsized opinion of herself and her abilities within the party. She's just another lefty who is on a one-track pony where what she's going to do at the end of the process is turn around and ask for her own seat. That's what it's about. And good luck to her. I'm sure she will find a way to make that happen for her. But the vast majority of the membership are not all that interested in what they have to say.
Let's turn to the Liberal Party leadership, because Peter Dutton lost his seat on Saturday night. Albanese, of course, had a double victory, defeating Adam Bant, and so now the Greens now need to find a new leader. But the two front runners for the Liberal leadership, Angus Taylor and Susan Ley, they both, their careers are just full of clownish errors and mistakes. I mean, I saw you posting before about Susan Ley. Of course, she discovered numerology in her youth, and she was born SUSAN, and so put the double S in because it would bring her an exciting life. And this a dirt sheet on Susan Ley has been going around. It's added an extra S, and has Lissa declared faith as numerology. I mean, it would be one for diversity. She's a woman, and she's the first leader of a major political party who believes in the occult. And Also, she used to be a punk rocker as well. She dressed up as Tina Turner in Parliament, but she didn't go with the blackface because obviously
No, God, lucky,
is an
lucky
African American.
Yeah. They're both placeholders. One would think that Taylor would be a better option than Lay, but he has to date proven to be very uninspired.
And of course, his various mistakes. Of course, his staff are making this mistake, forgetting to change his dummy account from Angus Taylor, commenting on Facebook, fantastic, great move, well done, Angus. And of course, there was his Mr. Speaker gaffe when the deputy female speaker, even after he was corrected, he kept saying Mr. Speaker. And then his scandal, of course, was falling for doctored travel expense document for the city of Sydney, which said that they'd spent 17 million on travel and it was 6,000. Of course, Susan Ley resigning as a minister because she, on a whim, bought a $750,000 Gold Coast apartment on a taxpayer-funded trip. So they both had quite checkered careers.
Yeah, and she, I don't even know what about her it is that you would even say is on the right of politics. She's been a very, very vocal supporter of Palestine.
That was listed in that DIS document as well.
Yeah, I mean, quite frankly, it's. I mean, we won't go. When I say we, I mean I'm not a member of the Liberal Party, but the right of the major party right in Australia will not make any ground under Susan Ley. That's for sure. Which is why the usual suspects have come out in support of her in the last couple of days. All the same losers who always lose elections have all been coming out.
But Angus Taylor is hardly any better. I mean, sure, he's a Rhodes Scholar, but he's a political buffoon.
Yeah, Kim Beazley was a Rhodes Scholar. Malcolm Turnbull was a Rhodes Scholar. Tony Abbott were Rhodes Scholars. They were all duds as well. I mean, I don't think that being a Rhodes Scholar automatically makes you a great leader of the country necessarily. I'm not saying you've not heard me here saying that Angus Taylor is a fantastic choice. I think he's been very uninspiring to date. But if I was sitting in the party room, I know which one of those two I'd be choosing between.
What about they're talking about going to the next generation? So Andrew Hastie he ruled himself out. Tim Wilson, he hasn't ruled himself in or out. He's somebody who is over the last couple of days is being admired by both the modern liberals, that's what he calls himself, and the conservatives for what he achieved. And
winning back a safe seat. Oh, okay, cool.
You don't find him
No. I know Tim very well, and I got a lot of time for Tim. My criticism of Tim is that for a guy who originally was elected on I'm effectively an economic decentralizer, and that's going to be my focus. The minute he got into Parliament, he became the member for gay, and that's really all he spent most of his term talking about.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, well, obviously there was the plebiscite in the first term, so that was.
Yeah, that's what I mean, and he really framed himself around that. I understand that. I completely understand why he did that, but I think that it was unfortunate as it made him a very unrounded candidate. Maybe I don't live in Melbourne, so I don't know what his campaign was like. I'm actually glad that he got back. He's a damn sight better than 90% of the people that got elected.
Well, he's said that the Liberal Party should stick with nuclear, while there's, your New South Wales Senator Maria Kovic said get rid of it. So he's willing to have those fights on those economic and on energy as well. I mean, you don't have a job at the Institute of Public Affairs for.
I think he has a role. He has a role to play. I think he adds value to the Liberal team, in my view. As I said, I don't agree with everything, but prefer him there than a lot of the other people. Is he the right person to be the leader? Probably not right now, because one, he's going to have a great deal of difficulty holding on to his seat. It's very hard to run people who have marginal seats in senior ministerial or shadow ministerial roles because they have to work hard in their own electorates.
Although Peter Dutton had a great run of 8 terms, which of course came crashing down on Saturday night, which, I mean, he'd need to keep his seat if he was going to be elected Prime Minister, obviously, and they'd need to win seats in Melbourne.
Well, that was the Howard view was, if I lose Bennelong, I'm losing government anyway, so who cares? I understand that point. All I'm saying is I'm not sure. I mean, I think it's an outfield choice, but you could do a lot worse than Tim Wilson. I won't deny that.
What about Andrew Hastie?
He's probably from the wrong state. It's seen as a small place that's a bit isolated from the main eastern seaboard of Australia. That I think makes it difficult for people to relate to him to some degree. I like Andrew. My beef with Andrew is that I think he's another Abbott, and you know my views on Abbott.
And he was put in witness protection this campaign because they were worried he might, well, not just because of the, women in combat, but also because they were worried he might say something anti-CCP, which would be spun on Chinese social media in Australia as being anti-Chinese. I mean, Penny Wong spread what Jane Hume said, that there could be Chinese spies working for the Labor Party on the booth, and Penny Wong said, look, this is what the Liberal Party thinks of you Chinese Australians, that you're not loyal.
Yeah. I think everyone got sidelined by Dutton. I mean, it's kind of what I was going to before. He seemed to run this entire campaign by himself, for himself. Maybe he was ego-driven. Maybe someone told him that was a really good idea. I don't know. I'm not close enough to how the campaign was run to know why it was run in the way that it was run. But a lot of people were sidelined. I mean, where did you see Jacinta Price? Where did you see Michaelia Cash? Where did you see Andrew Hastie? Was there anyone who was seen apart from Dutton? I remember previous elections, all sorts of people getting rolled out for all sorts of purposes.
And contrast that with Albo. He's always got his team around, and obviously that helped when he had a shocking campaign last election, or the gaffes that he made that and he got COVID, that it showed that, look, there's this team around him who will all work together, and that was sort of his pitch, stability. And there's still a few things I want to get through, so I hope we can get going for a little while.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Trump factor, and I know that you're not a MAGA person, and so in my opinion, it explained something about why Dutton lost, but not everything.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I think it had a role. It may have had a role in shifting the momentum as well. Around the time that the polls started turning against Dutton was around the time that Trump came out with his tariff policy. And that may have been something to it. He could have recovered from there. I agree with you. I don't think it was everything, but I think it was something.
Was it wrong for Dutton to, I guess, hedge a bet on the MAGA train by appointing Jacinta Price, basically the shadow Doge minister, and not sort of reading that it could go pear-shaped?
Maybe. I mean, I'll say this: why do we need to have our own Doge? Why don't we just have a promise that we will balance the budget and we'll do it by hook or by crook? And that's what Howard did in '96. He came in and they slashed the guts out of the federal government. They sacked 10% of all of Canberra.
But
that's often forgotten.
Again, it has the nation changed that they want the government and don't care about debt anymore. I mean, Albo flashing his Medicare card all the time, that's because that's what Australians expect. They expect that they shouldn't have to pay things from the doctor. Albanese was telling them what they wanted to hear what they wanted from government. Like, as the nation changed.
But you make a point, but who's pushing back? Who's running the arguments in the alternative? Who's saying government debt is ultimately unsustainable? It means you have to pay higher taxes in order to pay it off. Who's running that argument? Dutton never ran it. Abbott never ran it. Abbott increased taxes. The only prime minister in the last 40 years to have increased taxes, right?
Oh, the debt levy.
Yeah, well, that's a tax.
It is. Tax.
So, you know, but it's the old saying, Tim. You know, only Nixon can go to China. It's always the libs who sell us out on conservative things. It's only the libs who can get away with increasing taxes because Labor would be killed for doing it. It's only the libs who can legislate same-sex marriage because Labor would get pilloried for doing it. It's only the libs that can basically open the floodgates to unfettered Indian students coming here on visas to turn into taxi drivers because Labor would get pilloried for doing it. This is what happens. Why in New South Wales, Paratesa Guy puts the Aboriginal flag on the Harbour Bridge. Labor couldn't do it. It's why they want to legislate abortion and euthanasia. Labor couldn't do it. It's why I've always had the view that you have to have, you cannot sell out on any of these issues because the minute you do it, you'll never ever turn the clock back on this stuff. And it never does. None of this stuff ever comes back our way. We lose all these issues time after time after time. And none of these guys have any steel. And it comes back to a problem of the way the society we're educating people. It comes back to a problem of the candidates are getting picked. It comes back to no one's out there running any arguments against this stuff. And if they are, they're very, very quiet, or they're not getting traction. And it was done in a disjointed way. It's a hard slog, Tim. It's a hard slog, and you're playing your part. I know that. But we're not making any progress.
The HR Nickel Society need to put workplace reform back on the agenda.
Yeah, I agree.
Is it still worth joining the Liberal Party? Monica Schmidt of Reignite Democracy Australia, she's claiming that the Freedom Party's failed this election. I think that's a bit premature when the Senate is still not counted, but said that change from within, of course, it's been tried before, and well, you obviously have tried it. Is it worth trying for the infinite time?
No, it's not, because they always ensure that the minute they're put under pressure, they just change the rules on you.
And and she's basically tipped them off that I'm going to do this, and so they will have their vetting people and ready to knock back her and her friends' memberships.
That's exactly what will happen. You can't change this, the blob, as Michael Gove calls it. The blob infects everything. It runs the public service. These guys are public servants who just happen to work for the Liberal Party. You can't...
The MPs are public servants.
Yeah. But they've got public service culture. That's what Canberra does to you. It swallows you up and turns you into a member of the blob. And it's very hard to fight it. You don't even realize you're getting eaten by it. Because you're there, everyone pisses in your pocket, tells you you're going to be Prime Minister one day, buys you drinks down at the pub at Manuka, and you like this. You feel important, because remember, all these guys are losers. So it's the first time in their life that any of them are telling them that they're going places, and it's a wonderful feeling for them. They don't want to lose. They don't want to lose that experience. So what do I need to do around here? All right, I'll get on board with what everyone else wants me to do. I'm going to be part of the blob.
Now, the Senate is not going to be finalised for at least a month. Now, it's the Freedom Centre-Right Party that has done well in every state is Pauline Hanson's One Nation. Jared Rennick, though, did surprisingly well, the ex-LNP senator in Queensland, by getting 4.9% of the vote. Obviously, it would have helped being on the Katters Australia Party. ticket. So One Nation is in with a chance in every state.
Yeah, but they'll probably only get Queensland. It's probably the only one they'll end up with.
But the preferences do, like when below the line, they tend to benefit One Nation. I mean, Ralph Barbette was elected from the United Australia Party for Victoria in 2022 with 4% of the primary vote, the first in the new Senate to get elected outside of Queensland. And, well, obviously Jackie Lambie in Tasmania, though she's in trouble as well. But Pauline's been around for 30 years now. And like you look at reform in the UK, despite Farage falling out with Rupert Lowe, they're still surging in the polls. So why is Pauline Hanson's One Nation just stagnant? But why is reform really surging in the UK?
Because the brand of One Nation is Pauline. And other than some stunts that Pauline has pulled in the last 10, 20 years, what does Pauline even stand for? We know she's anti-immigrant. We know she's broadly anti-cultural Marxist on a very broad basis. Other than that, what does she stand for?
Anti-political correctness. She's running hard on the gender issue, energy.
Really? What's her position on energy? Other than what, is she pro-coal? I've never heard her say that explicitly.
She is.
Okay, but I think the One Nation brand is tied to her, and I think it's reached the upper ceiling it was always going to reach with her. It will always be stuck there whilst ever Pauline continues to be there. But
why he is like, obviously reform could run out of steam, but they did so well at the local council elections. Why is Farage surging, succeeding, while Pauline has not? What's the difference?
Because Farage is more than a single issue guy, and he's the only person in the UK who continues to talk to the real issues.
He was a single issue guy for many years, Brexit.
Yeah, but Brexit ended a long time ago, and it's not fully done, by the way. There's still an issue of Britain really has done nothing to benefit from the dividend that it should have gotten from Brexit. It's pretend as if it didn't really go through Brexit, which is a point that Farage continues to try and point out. So you've got all the problems that Brexit gave still there, and they haven't been tackled. But he's a much broader character who talks to a range of other issues that matter. Pauline, I wouldn't know what she stands for, to be honest with you. And I can honestly tell you, I've never voted for Pauline for that reason. I think she's a very limited package, in my view. But what you're seeing on the broad, I mean, if you added up all the parties on the broad right, other than the Liberal Party, it came up to something like 15% of the vote nationally. If you add all the libertarian.
This is what there was sort of rushed brief meetings before the election about having a freedom coalition. There was the Australia First Alliance ticket in New South Wales of Craig Kelly for the Libertarians, Jared Rennick People First, and the Heart Party, which is the new medical informed options party. But going to how they did, I'll just bring this up on the screen. This is in New South Wales, 1.9%.
Yeah,
Libertarians on their own in Victoria, 0.9%. And Family First, so Lyle Shelton ran in New South Wales, 1.6%, and Bernie Finn ran in Victoria. Remember, this is only with 68% of the vote counted. Family First, 1.8%. Trumpet of Patriots got about 2%. I mean, I think everyone... The only major endorsement I saw Trumpet of Patriots get was from the National Socialist Network. But Clive Palmer spent 60 million on Trumpet of Patriots for another 2%. He pretty much says he's done. So I said on my show on Monday, there's no appetite in Australia for purist libertarianism. It was their first campaign running on the libertarian ticket, or big government social conservatism, which is what Lyle Shelton represents. So
does he? I think Shelton is that far inclined? I'm not sure about that. But, anyway.
I would say that Bernie Finn is much more, I would say, small government.
Except he's very MAGA.
Yeah.
Which is also, to me, such a bizarre thing, because he's not small government, as in Trump is not small government.
The point that I'm making is that Family First, even Family First, like the original version, got around 2%. So,
yeah,
like they've got their base, but they're not getting more than that. The wild card of Jared Rennick. I mean, is there a future? Like, is he a future on the? I mean, there's so many ex-Liberal Party people like Jared Rennick, Craig Kelly, Ross Cameron.
No, Ross hasn't run for anything for a while, but
he's president of the New South Wales Libertarian Party.
Yeah, they're all. I mean, one wonders whether they should all merge and get together. But one of the difficulties, of course, is it's a bit like the thousands of micro parties within the socialist movement. The fight over Leninism versus Stalinism was so of such great import to those people that they can't actually work together. I've not been a member of any of these minor parties, so I don't know exactly how they work on the inside.
Maybe should
one does wonder though
go to one of the branch meetings.
While there's Family First and Christian Democrats running in the same election, that to me seems an unusual.
Yes, the fact that that's even been split. Australian Christians, they did win a seat in the the Western Australian Upper House as the Libertarian. Well, they were the Liberal Democrats when John Ruddock won the seat last election. Again, they were the Liberal Democrats, not the Libertarian Party. So it sounds like what you're saying is that they need to come together. John Ruddock's got lots of grand ideas about, he wrote the book, Make the Liberal Party Great Again, but spoken about this grand primary of the freedom parties that you just pick the best candidate to run in a coalition.
Yeah, I mean, if they could all somehow find a way to work together, it's probably enough there to get one person elected to the Senate each time around. And that turns you into a right-wing version of the Greens, where they're able to pull the Liberal Party to the right constantly because, one, you've got a viable electoral alternative, not just a micro one that you can swat away. And then secondly, you need their numbers in the Senate in order to get whatever your legislation is. So it really turns into a critical mass that currently none of these parties have. But, then again, part of the difficulty is a lot of these personalities, just can't work together. I mean, the candidate at the top of the Trump of the Patriots Senate ticket in New South Wales is a person who will never, ever bow the knee to anyone. They will always be the person who has to be top dog.
There's a lot of egos. They just rather be the big fish in the small pond for the ego factor.
Well, like for so many politicians, there's so many egos that get involved, unquestionably. But similar. Look, I don't know if you know the history of the formation of the Liberal Party. It effectively was the collapse of the United Australia Party. Menzies then went and collected all these little micro parties on the right, and he convinced them all to merge into the Liberal Party, and they all did it. And now that might have a lot to do with Menzies himself. And this is the other factor. There's no charismatic, like Farage type figure. I mean, you have a look at why Milei was successful in Argentina as he's a libertarian, but basically he says he's a narco-capitalist as well. Obviously, things got so bad in Argentina. They're not that bad here yet. So, as you were talking about before, the economic environment in Victoria is nowhere near as bad as in 1990, and also because Milei, he was smart, and he was also a maverick as well. With a chainsaw, dressing up as captain, and captain, also being uncompromising. So that's also a factor as well. I'd love to see a Milei, but someone's got to run that argument. I mean, anyway, I just right now I just can't see it in Australia. I think it'd take years of groundwork of someone running the economic deregulation argument. No one's been doing it for the best part of 30 years.
Yeah, my point is that you only get one Menzies in a generation. You probably only get one Malay in a generation. Is that the factor that they're this one charismatic person?
I think it's part of the structure. With anyone who is outside the box gets easily thrown out very quickly. They're told they're not part of the in crowd. There's too much risk. ABC's going to attack you. People are going to go through anything you posted 20 years ago. People just go, I don't need this crap. And they walk away from it. I think that's the biggest thing. I think there's a lot of internal roadblocks to getting decent candidates. I think the person exists out there. But I still don't think you could get Churchill right now, and I still think he'd lose an election in a landslide. Because
he did lose an election in a landslide
in 45. But I mean, maybe he's not the right example. Whomever, you can take the most popular person that's ever been known to mankind and run them, and I still think they'd lose because Australians have been attuned to the government solving their problems, and government solutions is an oxymoron. Until people start realizing that government is the problem, we're going to continue to get worse.
Yeah. Spencer Howard says Australia is one of the few countries in the English-speaking world where young men are leaning towards the left-wing party. There was just
well, they're both left-wing parties.
Yeah, that Gen Z would in Australia, they would, like in the US and the UK, just they become more conservative just to be a cultural thing. It hasn't eventuated this election, clearly.
Well, yeah, there was an opportunity there, and I think Dutton let it slip. And we don't know why. Maybe a book will get written about that one day.
Do you believe the conspiracy theories that there were George Christensen talked about there? It's just believe the stuff up rather than the conspiracy.
As Robert Conquest once said, don't ever subscribe anything to conspiracy. It is best explained by cock up. And it is much better explained by cock up than it is to conspiracy.
Now, my final question, obviously, Albanese's Labor government, they've been a bad government, but they've been re-elected with a massive mandate. I mean, things are not that bad in Australia. We're having declining living standards, but how bad do you think they're going to get in the next 3 years?
We're almost certainly going to have a recession, I would have thought, in the next electoral cycle.
You can just blame Trump for that.
Well, Trump is part of it because the uncertainty that he's created.
I'm just saying he'll be the scapegoat for Albanese.
Well, they can try, but I mean, at the end of the day, the inflation problem isn't going to go away. The interest rate hikes that are going to be required in order to defeat inflation are going to be painful to people.
I don't think the RBA has the stomach for it.
Well, then we end up with rampant hyperinflation. So one way or the other, eventually it's going to have to happen. And if you want to delay the pain, it means the pain is only going to be worse. Eventually, you're going to have to take much more bit of medicine when the time comes. Government expenditure will not decrease, which means the government will continue to crowd out private investment and will continue to have to increase its tax burden in order to pay for the things, because they will not cut expenditure. It doesn't matter what it is, they will not cut it. And so the music eventually has to stop, Tim. It always does. And Australians will work it out way too late that the profligate way of going about things is not the way to do it. But the Liberal Party itself hasn't realised that yet, that that's not the way to do things. That's why it won't go anywhere forward. And that's why Australia will continue to go backwards, because the people who should be advocating for this are not advocating for it.
Renewables won't suddenly become the cheapest form of energy. They won't build more houses.
No, of course not. And I mean, look, this is one of my criticisms of Dutton is I don't even know why he came out with the nuclear policy. Why didn't you just say coal is great? Let's ram as much coal down everyone's throats as we can possibly do.
Because they're committed to net zero. That's why.
Well, you're making my point, aren't you? Well, it's a suicidal policy, and it shows you how lacking in balls they have been for all these years. Even Howard was doing it. Howard signed up to Kyoto. I remember that, and because they had no nuts, they couldn't stand up for any of this stuff and say, "No, it's all garbage. We're not doing it."
Well, it's going to be a tough 3 years, and obviously the Liberal Party will continue to disintegrate. But thank you so much for your analysis tonight, Kyle. And at least you and I, we still have our bread and circuses. I mean, for you, it's the West Tigers and Rangers. For me, it's the Brisbane Lions in the AFL, and also Melbourne City in the A-League, and Chelsea in the Premier League. So we've got something to take our minds off everything.
How's the Lions going? I don't follow AFL, but the Tigers are actually winning a few games this year. So
yeah, we've only lost one game to Collingwood of all clubs. Like obviously, most proper AFL fans are ABC, anyone but Collingwood. They're actually playing tonight, so they're playing Fremantle tonight over in Perth. The West Coast Eagles, they've been crap for years, but they still turn up, the West Coast Eagles fans, 50,000 people for them to get flogged every week. So that's commitment.
You may recall, Tim, I lived in Perth for 7 years, and some people tried to get me to get into AFL. I went to a couple of games, and I think maybe I was too old to really start getting a taste for it, and never really got into it. But I remember the very large crowds that would always turn up to watch the Eagles, and the Dockers for that matter too, mind you. But the Dockers fans have less teeth than the Eagles fans.
They've always been the sort of not a little brother who's just hasn't been quite as great. But what about the Perth Bears? Are they going to get into the club, the new NRL franchise?
Well, by the way, this is now an interesting conversation. So, are you familiar with the expansion of the NRL? They've announced two teams. The Perth Bears were confirmed today. The Western Australian government is going to spend $60 million to help fund this team. One wonders why taxpayers need to fund it.
Well, he thinks it's a great deal, and
well, in some ways he's correct, because what was the deal that Albanese did with the NRL for the Papua New Guinea team?
Oh, that is the most ridiculous waste of money. Port Moresby is one of the most dangerous cities in the world. They're going to literally have to be in a compound with barbed wire, live there.
Tim, just let's focus. Let me tell you this deal right now. The PNG team is getting $600 million over 10 years from the Australian taxpayer, right? Apparently the Australian taxpayer is not on the hook beyond 10 years, okay? So they're getting $60 million a season. There's a salary cap where you can't spend more than about 12, 13, 14 million on players. So one wonders where the 60 million is going. They're also going to get the TV revenue package that everyone gets, which is about 25, 30 million. So the budget of this club is going to be close to $100 million. One wonders how they can even spend it, because, as I said, the salary cap's about 15 million. So there'll be other things, of course. You've got wages and on other things and marketing and blah, blah, blah. But long term, how is this club sustainable? Port Moresby will never pull in a single solitary dollar of corporate revenue. The ticket sales, you can't in a country like that sell tickets for hundreds of dollars a ticket. You'll be lucky to sell tickets for $2, $3, $4, right? So they're going to make zero money out of ticket sales. They're going to make zero money from corporate revenue. They're going to get the same television package that all the other clubs get. So at the end of the 10 years, when the federal government turns the tap off, then what? The team just disappears? It collapses? Of course it's not going to collapse. Because the PNG government's going to come to Australia and go, you can't allow us to lose our team. If we lose our NRL team, we're going to put a Chinese Navy base in Port Moresby. The Australian government will be permanently on the hook to this football club. Permanently. You will never, ever be able to get
That's why I think that Australia should just retake retake PNG. You know, do a Trump, and because Whitlam basically just gave it away unilaterally, just take it back, make it part of Australia again. Easy done.
In some ways, it's kind of a good thing that Whitlam gave it away. I mean, because the problems that we would be dealing with, it's an extremely poor, lawless place, which is sad. You know, I wish there was more that could be done to fix that. But ultimately, it's not our problem. They're not Australians. They're not Australian people. There are near neighbours and there are security issues there that need to be adequately dealt with. But Australia can't continue to have an arrangement where every time Papua New Guinea or Samoa or Tonga or Vanuatu want a hospital or a road or whatever built, that they say, well, if you don't build it, we'll call the Chinese and the Chinese will come and build it for us. And then we'll give them a lease on our ports. So that's what...
That's been Albo's foreign policy, Wong's
In fairness, this was going on long before Albanese. It was going on before Abbott was Prime Minister. It's been going on pretty much since the days of Howard. At some stage, you have to put your foot down. And now, kudos to, in some ways, to Albanese, which is, we've got to find a way to do this other than just constantly bending over for demands. We need to cut the snake off at the head. All right, how do we do this? Let's get a football team. And they're permanently hooked into us. But they think that this team can be self-sustaining. It is impossible for that team to be self-sustaining. You may as well put a team on the Cocos Islands or in Broken Hill.
I think they've done that in the Super Rugby. Isn't there like a Pacific franchise now as well?
Yeah, but the Super Rugby operates on a budget of $40 million a season for the entire competition. The NRL gets $1 billion in television revenue. They are chalk and cheese. It's like comparing the VFL, or as it used to be the VFA, to the AFL. They are completely different competitions, and there's just no comparison.
Well, we could get into a whole nother discussion of the politics of sport. I also touched on it when I interviewed Bernie Finn, because he's a mad Richmond Tigers supporter, despite us both being fed up with the wokeness of the AFL. That's another factor there, but we'll leave it there. Thank you so much, Kyle, for you couldn't make election night, but thank you tonight for offering us your post-election analysis.
It's always good to talk with you, Tim. Thanks for having me on your program.
And we'll see what can be sorted out in the next 3 years with regard to some form of opposition.
Someone will step up and do something. I know that.
Let's hope. And also keep up the great work defending Kirralie Smith. And I don't know if you have other clients that get these frivolous lawsuits by these transgender sports people.
I can announce to you that I have just intervened in the Tickle and Giggle case that's on appeal to the federal court. I've intervened on the side of a free speech union who are making some arguments in that. So yeah, watch this space. Do you know about the Tickle and Giggle? Is that?
I do. Again, Liberal Party, they don't believe in free speech anymore.
No. Did they ever?
Well, there was a stage where they wanted to repeal 18C, but they put pressure on the Albanese government to pass the hate crimes bill just before the election. So they've completely junked that principle as well.
Well, 18C, by the way, would have been a decent step in the right direction, but then they've gone and supported the hate crime legislation. It's now, for example, illegal to display certain symbols in Australia.
Well, a mandatory 1 year minimum for symbols at a federal level and horizontal hand movements. And that was lobbied by James Patterson, who used to be at the Institute of Public Affairs when they were championing free speech.
Now, why this legislation is so invidious, it's not because anyone wants to see people going around waving Nazi flags or doing Roman salutes. But Tim, I can tell you, as you know, I'm 44 years of age. I have never in my entire life in Australia seen anyone wave a Nazi flag or do a Roman salute, other than ironically in a John Cleese comedy or something along those lines.
Well, the carve out for artistic, does that cover it? It's
I
very
believe
vague.
it
Does it
I believe
cover
it does.
comedy?
Yeah, but I'm not saying he's committed any crime. What I'm saying is I've never ever seen anyone actually doing one. So one, why was this legislation necessary? But then secondly, right, if we're able to ban Nazi symbols, why can't we ban the cross? Why can't we ban the hammer and sickle? Why can't we ban
Exactly, or the solidarity fist?
Yeah. Why can't we ban those symbols? Now, interestingly, Australia's gone through this. We attempted to ban the Communist Party, and the High Court said you can't do that. So if you can't ban the Communist
Australia
Party,
didn't become a communist nation, just like when the swastika wasn't banned, Australia didn't become a Nazi nation.
Indeed, we didn't need to ban the Nazi salute, all the symbols during the period of the 30s and the 40s. Arguably, when it was at its apex of popularity, it was still we didn't feel there was a need to do that. It's a move by governments that have nothing better to do except look like they're doing something by pandering,
making us feel safe.
Yep, that's right. Just like shutting down the world because of COVID, because of a flu, right? Governments seem to be doing things rather than governments trying not to do things. Again, it always keeps coming back to that problem of everyone thinks the government's there to solve their problems, whereas government is the problem. Anyway, we could go all night, Tim. I know you want to wind up. You've probably got washing to do, and
I still haven't cooked my dinner because
there you go.
Yeah.
I don't want to keep you from. You might waste away, Tim. I can't have you starve on YouTube.
Oh, I did well. There wasn't my stomach rumbling on the microphone, so that's good.
Oh, very good. All right, mate. I'll let you wind it up.
Thank you, Kyle. All the best. All right, everybody. That is WilmsFront for another week. Now, as I mentioned to you on Tim's News Explosion on Monday, I was on RCR Radio Tuesday morning for a Wilms report, post-election report with its breakfast host Paul Brennan. So he called it the Albanese avalanche. Of course, I called it the elbow slide or the anal slide. And of course, I cannot do all of these Unshackled productions without your support. So please consider supporting us over on the unshackled.net/membership, or you can, which is where I still publish our Unshackled articles, or you can support us over at Substack, the unshackled.net. Oh, sorry, the unshackled.substack.com/subscribe. And you can also sign up there for just a free membership, because that's where I send out all of our email alerts for upcoming Unshackled productions like WilmsFront tonight. There'll be a fresh report from Tiger Mountain with Richard Wollstonecroft in the next few days. I just published one. His report on the WASP files about the Port Arthur massacre by his friend Paul Motor. I do plan to interview Paul Motor, not because I agree with the Port Arthur conspiracies, but it's just interesting to hear what he's got to say. He was on Sam Newman's You Cannot Be Serious podcast recently. And also, it just helps spread the word. Just make sure you're subscribed, click the bell to allow for notifications, like, comment, and share. I'll be back with Tim's News Explosion Monday evening, 8:30 p.m. Melbourne time on the WilmsFront channel. So please stay safe, stay sane. Don't be too black-pilled, especially after tonight. And I will see you all soon. Enjoy your weekend.
Thanks for tuning in to WilmsFront. Visit timwilms.com to view the archive of episodes. And keep visiting the unshackled.net to view all our shows. And to keep up with the latest real news and analysis.